Hello, welcome to Web of Stories. My name is Melinda, and it all of a sudden gotten sunny in here, so it got really bright. Sorry about that. But today is Tuesday, and I have been tagged in the, the Holmes tag. Holmes is where the heart is tag, which is a read along that's going on right now, and I had plans to read a Sherlock Holmes story, not do all the prompts. But it's not happening this month. I've never read Sherlock Holmes, and I want to. I've seen movies and TV shows. I just have never read Sherlock Holmes or Arthur Conan Doyle, so I need to do that, and hopefully sometime soon. But this was started by Mark at Book Time with Elvis, and I was tagged by Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading. I have the questions up here, so I'm just going to read them and answer them. I'm going to do this thing, okay? The first question, elementary, my dear Watson. Share a classic mystery novel that you consider a must-read. As you know, if you watch my channel, I'm a big Agatha Christie fan, and everyone says "And Then There Were None," which is a great mystery novel, and you should read it. But I'm going to go a different direction. I'm going to say The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. So I think this is a very important mystery to read as a mystery reader because it's turned the mystery world on its head. That's all I'm going to say about it. Other than this is a book that should not be spoiled. There are certain books that no matter how old they are, you should never spoil them. This is one of them. Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro is another one, but never spoil these, no matter how old the books are. I personally was spoiled by this from watching a documentary on Agatha Christie, but just go in blind with The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. But I do think that one is very important for mystery readers. Next one, Baker's Street Irregulars. Recommend a book with a group of unlikely heroes or a diverse ensemble cast. I'm going to recommend The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. I read this last year on the recommendation of my oldest brother. And I was a little trepidatious about it because people either seem to love it or hate it. I fortunately fell into the love category. It's like a thriller with a definite supernatural or something element to it, but it kept me on my toes. A very unlikely team comes together. It kind of talks about family and loyalty, and it's just a really fun, original mystery. I quite enjoyed it, so I'm going to go The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. Next question. Okay, the game is afoot. Name a book that had a plot twist revelation that completely surprised you. I am going to follow the lead of Kelly at Books I'm Not Reading and not answer this one because I think to tell you would be a spoiler for that book. I once was recommended a book. It's a very famous book. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it's a very famous book, a classic of science fiction. It's been around for a long time. Most people have read it. But when I was recommended, I was told it has a huge twist. And so I spent the whole book trying to figure out the twist, which I did. And then when it happened, it was a complete letdown. So I'm not going to answer that one. You'll just have to figure that one out by yourself. And I do think telling someone when you recommend them a book that there's a big twist is a spoiler. That's just me. Okay, 221B Baker Street. Talk about the time you visited somewhere of literary significance. So, when I was between my junior and senior year in college, I did a summer term in England, where I took classes on the English social novel and the Brontes, two different classes. So as part of the Brontes, we went up to Haworth and we went through their parsonage. We walked all over Haworth. We wandered the moors. I loved it. It was just such a wonderful experience. And it really brought the Brontes to life for me. A second one is when I was somewhat older. I was living in Boston and my parents came to visit. I didn't have a car when I lived in Boston because I lived in Boston. You don't need a car. But my parents would always rent a car. So we went out to Concord and I went to the Orchard House where Louisa May Alcott lived. And I don't know if she wrote Little Women there, but definitely that was where Little Women takes place. And that was a very similar experience for me. So those two. I like visiting old houses. So yeah. Okay. Moriarty's Master Plan. Describe a book where the antagonist was exceptionally cunning and memorable. So my answer to this one, I don't know if it exactly fits the prompt, but I want to do it anyway. And that's, I can't remember the author's name, but I will put it down below. The book is Hench. And it's about sort of a low-level temp worker who used to always work for superheroes. And then something happens and she she leaves it. She doesn't want to work for superheroes anymore. So she goes to work for a supervillain and is a very good supervillain. And that whole book plays with, my cat is over there making noise, sorry. The whole book plays with the idea of villain and hero and what does that mean. And I think that it's like something Marie Walshot's, like, I'll put it down below. It's bugging me. I can't remember her name, but excellent book. Highly recommend it. But yeah, that one definitely plays with the idea of hero and villain. And that is Hench. Okay. The next one, The Art of Deduction. Uh-oh, my screen just did a weird thing. Okay. Mention either a book that kept you guessing all the way to the end or one where you guessed the outcome early on. For the first part, a book that kept you guessing to the end, that's very much like telling you, there's going to be a twist. So I'm not going to answer that part. But I will tell you one where I guessed the ending early on, and that was Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. It was pretty obvious. This is one of her last novels that she wrote. She was dealing with some mental decline at that time. And it is obvious in that book. That's not a successful book. I think it's a book you should read if you're a Christie completist. But other than that, it's not a book I would recommend. And for those of you who are asking, it is not actually the same thing as A Haunting in Venice. It says it's based on it, but it's not. There's some character names that are the same. But yeah, Christie wrote for a very long time, and she was very old at the end of her career, and she had suffered, I don't know if she'd suffered a stroke. I know she had suffered at least a heart attack. So she'd had health issues. And this was just a book that was, it just was a late book. It's a Poirot. And I said, unless you want to be a completist, it's not really a book I would recommend because yeah. Okay. The Hound of the Baskervilles. Talk about a book with a strong atmospheric setting or one where the setting plays a significant role in the story. I'm going to talk about a book that I recently read and actually didn't really like, but I'm going to talk about it anyway because one thing that I did like about this book was this, and that is The Good House by Tanana Reeve-Dew. So I read that in January for my book club, and we just discussed it this last weekend, and the club was pretty much in agreement on this, and there were some issues with the book, but the setting was so well done. Now, it helps that it was set in an area not far from me that I know. So I'm like, yeah, that's what that's really like. So it really was true to life. But it's a horror novel. So the setting is very, very important to that. But there's also horror elements that really play into that she does a really good job of bringing in and having it be very sensuous. Like you really sense that through different things in the description of the setting. So I will say The Good House by Tanana Reeve-Dew. Okay. The Reichenbach Falls. Talk about a series that you thought had ended but made a surprise comeback. I thought about this one and I can't think of one, but I can put one out on a wish list. And that is the Ruth Galloway series by Ellie Griffiths. Now, Ellie Griffiths had said the series is done for now. So there is a good chance that there will be more at some point. I do think she said that there's going to be a short story collection coming out, which is not in the US. So I'll have to look that up on Blackwell's to see if I can find it. But I really enjoyed that series. And I think the series came to kind of a good place to end. True. But I do feel like there could be a second chapter to it, or there's at least one character in particular, or a couple. They are a couple, a character and his partner, that I think could be spun off to a very interesting series that I would love to see. So yeah, I'm going to say Ruth Galloway by Ellie Griffiths. Okay. Sherlockian adaptations. Discuss your favorite book-to-screen adaptation or retelling of a classic story. So I am not a huge fan of book-to-screen adaptations, honestly. There are some that I like. There are some that I think are really faithful. There are a few that I think are better than the book. I will talk, two that I can think of off the top of my head that are better than the book. One, The Wizard of Oz. I don't need to say anything more about it. Like, the movie is Technicolor and has songs and all this. The book does not live up to that. The second one is About a Boy by Nick Hornby. So I read that book when it was released, and I was like, this would be a great book starring Hugh Grant. And it was like in the 90s when Hugh Grant was like at the top of his thing. Although Hugh Grant is one of those actors who's kind of stayed kind of up there. Well, at least until he played an Oompa Loompa, but that's another thing. But I was like, this would be a great Hugh Grant movie. And it was. It was a fabulous Hugh Grant movie. I don't know if anyone could play that role better than Hugh Grant. And I think it was Hugh Grant's best role that he's played. Definitely the best hair role for him. Like that was the best. His hair was the best in that movie. But also there was a lot of, there was some extra stuff in that book that they slimmed. When they did the movie and they streamlined it, they took it out. And I think it actually improved the story. There was a character who was very obsessed with the death of Kurt Cobain in it. And that's not even mentioned in the movie, which I think is smart because if you read a book sense of time, it's fine. But in a movie, you date the movie. And so I think to keep the movie relevant, it was good to take that out. But it also just was able to focus much more on the story. And I do think that the story was much clearer and much more engaging as a movie than it was as a book. So, About a Boy. Okay. The Great Detective. Recommend a book with a brilliant and memorable protagonist. Oh my goodness. So I could go easy on this, or I could sit here and look blankly at the screen. Give me a sec. I'm going to cut away and think, and then I'm going to come back. Okay. I actually just went through last year's reading log to see if something other than the obvious jumped out to me. And I did think of something, but I'm going to do that one and then I'll tell you my two obvious ones. So the one I thought of was, I read my very first Greek myth-ish retelling last year, which was Clytemnestra by Cassandra Casati. And oh man, that was a fantastic. And Clytemnestra was such a character. I didn't know anything about her. And then I find out she's the villain of Greek myth because she killed her husband. Well, dude, she killed her husband because he killed her daughter. I mean, go girl. I mean, I just thought that was just an amazingly well done. And I was just captivated by Clytemnestra. And she's kind of my favorite now. She's kind of my favorite figure from the Greek mythology world. So that's my non-easy one. Now my easy ones were, I'm going to have to say Poirot because the guy's a genius. Him and his little gray cells, and he's a fun character. That's what I like about him because he is just, he's difficult, but he's charming. And I just love that. He's just a fun character. And the other one, of course, I would do would be Armand Gamache from the Three Pines series because he's so dapper. He's my ideal man. Is Gamache. He's so dapper and warm and caring, and the world needs more Gamaches. That's all I can say. So that's my Holmes tag. It's not going to be as long as it says because I had to really think on that last one. But I am going to tag 3 people. So I'm going to tag Mild Rumpus because Suey tagged him last week on the Girl Scout tag, and he was so excited to be tagged. So I'm tagging you again. You've been tagged again. And then I'm going to do Jennifer at Jennifer Loves Books. And of course, Suey at Suey's Book Banner. She does, I figure she does a lot of tags too. So I know that a lot of people have been tagged. So I'm pretty sure these people haven't been tagged. At least I hope. And of course, if you feel like doing it, that's great. And if you haven't been tagged, consider yourself tagged. Anyway, thank you very much. Thanks to Mark for creating this tag, and thanks to Kelly for tagging me, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Please subscribe, join my Discord, and I'm so close to 500 as I'm filming this. So send me questions for a little Q&A session. Okay, bye-bye.